I want to encourage you in the season that you're in to make sure that you serve and give and obey God out of the portion that you have, out of your willingness and what's in your ability without shame, because God loves a cheerful giver. So man may weigh your works and weigh the size of your seed. It is our God is the God who uses the mustard seed size types of things. And he does so much through the simple right motive rather than the actual physical thing. In Romans chapter 6, verse 18 through 20, this is Paul saying, "You having been set free from sin, you became slaves of righteousness. I speak in human terms because of the weakness of your flesh. Just as you presented your members as slaves of uncleanness and of lawlessness leading to more lawlessness, so now present your members as slaves of righteousness for holiness." God is wanting to see you with the same zeal that you had for the world, that you had for lawlessness, now turn over to the service of his kingdom. Shine forth the light that he's giving you and use your whole being for righteous causes. And know that God remembers who you were before, not with condemning or accountable eyes, but rather, I'm saying he knows your capacity. So, with the same capacity, he wants to feel you and see you walking in that truth in this new life. In Luke chapter 21, at the very beginning, it says, "Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he also saw a certain poor widow putting in 2 mites. So he said, 'Truly I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all. For all these out of their abundance have put in offerings for God, but she out of her poverty put in all the livelihood that she had.'" So here are two people putting into the treasury of God, but God is weighing what's physically a smaller amount as greater. I love when I had watched the movie, it was a Christian movie. It kind of, the way they had worded this scene helped it stick out to me and help me to understand it a little bit more. But Christ had told the people, yes, you're faithful to sow your 10%, but there's a way that a person can come along and sow a smaller amount than what they give monetarily, but it's actually that person's 100%. And so Christ received that with a better attitude. We want to be sincere in just giving, and all of us giving our 100%, not measuring what somebody else is giving. And this is not just speaking financially, but in everything. And like I said at the beginning, you're giving, but also you're serving, and your righteousness be filled to the capacity that you're capable of doing. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, starting at verse 17, my little subheading says, "Live as you are called." It says, "But as God has distributed to each one, as the Lord has called each one, so let him walk. And so I ordain to the churches." Hopping down to verse 21, it says, "Were you called while a slave? Do not be concerned about it, but if you can be made free, rather use it. For he who is called in the Lord while a slave is the Lord's freed man. Likewise, he who is called while free is Christ's slave. You were bought at a price. Do not become slaves of men." So God is always wanting to increase us, and has, through his spirit, through his son. He is the one who weighs everything in a spiritual aspect that levels the playing field. The final verse I want to read is in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, and this just goes back to God loving the cheerful giver, but I'm trying to bring together how he wants us to live in our capacity and live in the state that he's called us, but increasing as much as we're able to continue to walk in that liberty that he's given us and for his glory. It says in verse 6, but this I say, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. This is speaking spiritually, because when you continue, it says, so let each one give as he purposes in his heart, not grudgingly or out of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that you, always having all sufficiency in all things, may have an abundance for every good work. As it is written, he has dispersed abroad, he has given to the poor, his righteousness endures forever. Now may he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food supply and multiply the seed which you have sown and increase the fruits of your righteousness. God is a God of increase, and he said he gives this abundance to every good work. He, and the verse right before said, he makes grace abound based on your heart posture when you sow what you are able to sow in your righteousness, in your giving, in your wisdom, and the gifts that God has given you. Remain in the state that you are called, but increase as much as God increases you in your capacity. God recognizes when you are like the woman who put in what seemed to be less, but he waited as more. And he makes grace abound and increase go to the correct heart posture.